Mic check. Wow, and I just realized that I've been talking for about almost 4 minutes, and I didn't have any audio. That would have frustrated me. Let me check something. Would have frustrated me. Aha, there we go. Now we have audio. Audio is now clean. I do apologize for that. Long story short for this week, guys. I hope you all have been having a great and fantastic week. Me, I had a little bit of a stressful week. If you looked at my Twitter, I actually been posting a lot of pictures of my cat Nero. He actually went through dental surgery this week, back Thursday, so it's day 2 now since he's been out of surgery, and he's doing a lot better now. It was kind of funny. I was doing a days of trash kitty, because that's what he's become. He's become the goblin. He's been the trash goblin king. You know, like, just, I don't know how to describe him, but there's a packaging trash right over here. You can't see it, but you see in the photos, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. And he just would not let me want to throw that away. I try to throw it away, he'll sit on it. He knows when I try to throw it away too. So I just think it's kind of funny. I could totally throw it away if I wanted to, but I don't want to disappoint him. He's a happy old cat, and I love him. I'm not going to disappoint him. But yeah, I missed out yesterday because he was actually with me for the most part for the day. He wasn't doing super hot, a little bit queasy. He did throw up yesterday too, so he didn't really go back to his little trash pile. He was just wanting to be my lap kitty and not want to go anywhere else. And yeah, he's not here with me right now. I do not know where he's at. I mentioned earlier, and I'll have to cut it, but man, it's hard to point. Shadow's up on his tower, but Nero, I believe he's on the couch, or he might be in the bedroom. I'm not too sure. He was with me earlier, but I kept moving around, so he just didn't like that. And he's still under medication and stuff. So yeah, that's all I want to talk about my cat for the moment here. I want to give you guys a cat update. But we're not here for the cat. We are here for me to review Iron-Blooded Orphans. Oh yeah. So with that, people, I just want to give it a quick disclaimer too before I just jump right into the portion. I will be treating this kind of like a YouTube video because I will be editing this and putting it on YouTube. So I will be giving disclaimers at the beginning and end. But please don't leave when I give my final disclaimer, like kind of, it sounds like a closing. If I close, I will let you know that I'm closing the stream, not just closing in general, because I'm trying to make it sound like it for a video. So just want to let you guys be aware about that. And those of you who are in stream too, just pay attention to the banners and stuff like that, because I know you guys don't want to hear spoilers. So I will have my banners up. And then when the banner goes away, it is safe to resume listening to me. And you can unmute me. Other than that, I only got one thing to review today, and that's just going to be Iron-Blooded Orphans. I got some things I want to talk about after the fact of the matter, and I will try to keep this short. I keep saying that every single week, but it's a little bit more difficult for me at times because I tend to ramble, and when I get on a tangent, I can't help but rant. All right. With that said, hey there, and welcome to another Nerdy Reviews. I'm the Absolute Nerd, but you can call me Briston, and today we're going to be reviewing Mobile Suit Gundam Iron-Blooded Orphans. Now, before I begin here, just a quick little thing here. If you can, like this video on YouTube, subscribe to my channel, and leave a comment down below. I want to hear from you guys, like, did you like the series? What you think about my comments about it? Just an overall. I want to hear from you guys. Leave a comment down below. With that said, let's go ahead and begin with our review. And nothing can start off a review other than a story, right? So the story with Iron-Blooded Orphans is basically, it takes place in post-disaster, or PD 323. We follow Mikazuki August. I keep calling him Mikasa for some odd reason, but Mikazuki August and Orga Itsuka as they form the mercenary group known as Tekkaden and take on dangerous jobs to carve a life for themselves and their family. So that's just the base point. There is a little bit more to the story, especially because this is a 50-episode series that is broken up into 2 seasons of 25 episodes each. So the stories kind of differ a little bit between the seasons. I'm not going to say anything about the story for the second season because I don't want to spoil it for you guys, but I will be talking a lot more about spoilers when we get to our spoilers section. I do want to let you know too that this series did air in Japan back in October 4th of 2015, and then later in the United States on June 4th of 2016. It's been a long time since Gundam actually aired on Cartoon Network from that time point. I think the last time that they actually aired something was Gundam Seed back in 2004, 2005? I'm trying to remember off here. Off the bat, one thing I really want to talk about this series, just some key overalls, right? Animation. Animation in this series is phenomenal, top notch. Very beautiful, very contrasty. This screenshot right here, not a screenshot, but a poster, and then I have also this right here, kind of gives you a little bit of an idea of the style of the animation itself. Very contrasty, very hard, not with the lines itself, but like contrasting and hard with the colors themselves. How do I also put this too? Like a lot of the animation just in motion itself too is very cinematic. A lot of the quality in this anime feels like something you would watch in an anime movie. At least how I feel about it. Very beautiful, very nice, and can get downright visceral too on imagery. So great work on the animation. I love it. The music of this series is phenomenal. I love a lot of the music here. I apologize for that, folks. Ooh. I had something that was itching in the back of my throat. I'm like, I'm trying not to cough here. I'm trying not to cough in this mic too. I'm like, no, please, God, no. And I'm like, I want to try and mute myself, but I don't want to mess with the audio. Anyways, moving along here. So the next awesome thing about this series is the music. A lot of it is fantastic and phenomenal. Really gives a lot of relevance and tone and atmosphere to what you are watching on scene, whether it be, again, with dialogue, with characters, or the action sequences. I really love a lot of the action sequence music too. Has a lot of like and a lot of like excitement behind it. Really, again, keeps you in that atmosphere and gives you a lot of the tonalities of what's going on. Just, it's awesome. I love the music in this series. Not too crazy for the opening and endings necessarily, but it does have a lot of the energy of what Tekkaden is like. So I think it really captures that too. Another aspect I like to talk about too is voice acting, and wow, this is top tier. Probably, in my opinion, the best voice acting in the entire franchise. There's not a character in this entire series I felt like the voice acting was not on spot. You know, like everybody fit the tone and personality of their characters. Everybody was able to portray a wide range of emotions and things. Oh my lord, I can't believe this. I do apologize for this. Here, let me give you some, oh lordy. Let's give you some Digimon action, right? Just because I'm getting interrupted by a stupid Lord Nightmon. I want to kill it now. I hope I got that one right. Yeah, I did. Woohoo! Come on. Focus, damn you. Focus. Focus. Gonna hurry that up. And you won. And you have to bother me for no reason. Sometimes I regret having a high counter on that one. Anyways, I digress. Alright. So, back onto the voice acting. I think, or not I think, but a lot of the voice actors are perfect for every single character that they fit into. Ooh, excuse me. Oh my gosh. I apologize. I don't know what's going on here this week, or today. I didn't actually eat anything this time. I was trying to avoid like any indigestion or anything like that, so I don't know why, but let's just roll with it again. But yes, the voice acting in this series is just top notch. Like, I have no other way to describing other than every single voice actor and actress fit their characters to a key point. They have a huge wide range of emotion and captures a lot of what these characters' behaviors, mannerisms, and personality is like. Easily one of the best, if not overall the best voice acting in the entire Gundam franchise. Loved every single character's voice actor or actress. And yeah, I can't gush any more than that. Other than that, I really do love Johnny Young Bosch's voice for Orga Itsuka. A huge Bosch fan, so really do enjoy hearing his voice again, and especially in a Gundam series. And if you can't already tell by how I was already kind of leading with this series, overall, I really did enjoy this series a whole lot. There's a lot that is to be loved about this series. First and foremost, I want to talk about is just the overall atmosphere and tone of this series. It is probably one of the most darkest Gundam series in the entire franchise. It's not something to be excited to talk about, but in all honesty, it doesn't pull any punches. It's not being very kid-friendly or whatnot, and that's kind of something I want to see. And that's something unique about anime versus cartoons, right? You want to see something that's a little bit more realistic, more portrayed in a harder fashion, especially in a world where it's about war and stuff like that. So Iron-Blooded Orphans does a really great job of bringing a lot of these dark tones and dark atmosphere revolving around like child soldiers, corrupt governments, and trying to build a family. Indeed, again, like I mentioned as already, this is one of the darker Gundam series. It is in competition directly with Zeta Gundam and Victory Gundam. And it can be argued which one of the three that I'm talking about is like the darkest one of the entire Gundam franchise. If you ask me for my opinion, and after careful consideration, I would say that Iron-Blooded Orphan is the darkest of the Gundam series in the entire Gundam franchise. And I put it this way, Iron-Blooded Orphan does what both Zeta Gundam and Victory Gundam does. However, Victory and Zeta Gundam goes about it in two different ways, and Iron-Blooded Orphan takes both of their concepts and mashes them together. Zeta Gundam more or less portrays like darker moments. Like why Zeta Gundam is so dark is because the events that occur for our characters and the misfortune that happens throughout the entire series is what's very, very critical or key for Zeta Gundam. The overall tone, though, isn't as dark. It's just more or less, it feels like more of that hopefulness and ongoing throughout the entire series, but you don't feel oppressed by the series itself. I apologize. Hold on. I've been drinking tea, so maybe that's causing an irritation. Going back to water for right now. Oh my gosh. Apologize. Now, in terms of Victory Gundam, though, Victory Gundam's overall atmosphere and tone is very dark. While it does have a lot of events or moments in the entire series that is dark itself, it doesn't have it as much as like you would say as Zeta Gundam. The darker moments that do occur in Victory Gundam hits pretty hard, but the overall atmosphere and tone is almost suffocating in Victory Gundam. In tune that it's like you're just like how it doesn't have as much oppression in Zeta Gundam. That's what we're getting in Victory Gundam. There's a lot of oppressive feelings, oppressive moments, or the atmosphere overall is just very oppressive and strangulates you, feeling like there's no hope. But overall in the series, it's trying to elaborate like you must have hope. You must have that will or that drive, because if you don't, you're going to be crushed by this overwhelming weight. So that's what you get that feeling from Victory Gundam. And then Zeta Gundam again is with the atmosphere or the tones. Are you kidding me? All right, no. I swear to God, I'm going to put you to sleep. I apologize. But when it comes to Iron-Blooded Orphans, it takes both Zeta Gundam's oppressive actions or events that take place, and it takes Victory Gundam's oppressive tones and atmosphere and combines that together to be a very, very dark, very visceral, very savage series itself. And it does this through the story, the events that occur with our characters, and of course the action itself. The action in this series is awesome. I don't know how to describe the action necessarily because it's very different than most Gundam series that we've seen thus far. Most of the action that we see in Gundam is very quick, fast-paced, a lot of shooting with beam weaponry and stuff like that. Take all that away and scrap that, because the fights that you get in Iron-Blooded Orphans is long, dredging, and can feel at times exhausting. Much of it is dealing with a lot of physical-based weapons, like melee or ballistics-based weaponry, so a lot of it's just drawn out. The armor of a lot of these suits tend to not get destroyed easily or get penetrated easily, so we get a lot of these long fights where they're trying to shoot at each other and just penetrate or destroy portions. You get the melee weapons, which are devastating, being used to like either to destroy limbs or outright crush the cockpits of the pilots. It gets, again, the words I'm going to be using quite frequently here: visceral, brutal, and savage. These fights are just incredible to watch, and while they don't fill a lot of the screen time because the consistency between it, the action is not as much as you would see in a lot of other Gundam series. But when we get to the action, it's intense. But yeah, Iron-Blooded Orphan was a lot of fun with a lot of the action sequences that they have to offer. And man, it is just brutal. Alongside with the brutal of the action itself, the story and the overall world building in this entire series is fascinating. I am actually wanting to see a lot more with this series because there's a lot to do with a lot of factions, the differences between, because we start off in Mars and we do go to Earth and go back and forth from here and there. But the world dynamics between these two planets, the governments and the factions alongside each side, is fascinating. Really love a lot of this world building, and it's just a different approach too. Again, with the story, we're not following this traditional means of like characters that are put into a warlike situation. No, we're following like the day-to-day lives of people who are just trying to live post-war. Of course, the war had happened, or this calamity war that they talk about happened 300 years prior to this series taking place. So at this point, there is no longer war, but there's still conflict. And I think it's just kind of interesting because we don't get a whole lot of series that do exactly just that. And Iron-Blooded Orphans really plays with this kind of newer, unique story, essentially. Again, not unfamiliar from what we've already seen in the past, kind of like, you know, Gundam X and stuff like that. But I think they really take that concept and play it up a lot more. Now, while I do really enjoy the action and the story and the characters and the pacing overall, I do still have some issues with this series overall. And it's kind of funny I mentioned that because it's some of the things, it's more like nitpicks, right? So in this case here, like there are certain characters I still have a problem with. And bear in mind, this is the second time I've watched Iron-Blooded Orphan, so I have it right here on my Blu-ray collection right here. I got the original set when it originally came out because I bought the special editions, both for Season 1 and Season 2. I believe they have now re-released this in a full collection, if I'm not mistaken. I haven't checked, though. But what I was trying to say, though, here is that on my first watching, I had huge issues with some of these characters, and it did detriment my score originally. Coming back into this and rewatching it a second time and having a better understanding of some of my characters, or some of these characters we have in the series, and getting a lot more familiar, understanding a lot of their backgrounds, being more attentive to what's going on, since I'm not trying to get familiar with things, but now discover newer things, right? So I got to get familiarized with a lot of these characters again and understand their mentality or their behavior or mannerisms. But I still find that some of the characters that we have in this series are a little bit problematic. And also it just really stems down to the writing for these characters. And speaking of writing too, there's some writing moments in the series that's a little bit off or a little bit clunky. Especially in the second season, a little bit towards the beginning, though. It's like after the beginning, but a little bit in the beginning. You'll know what I'm talking about. It kind of feels a drag on a bit, but there's a huge point to that one, and it does pay off towards the end of the series as well, or pays a huge contribution towards that end portion, and of course the conclusion itself. So that's a really, really big thing that I had issues with. Again, it's not really as much. It sounds like I'm mentioning a lot, but it's not a huge point. I'll be talking and elaborating a little bit more about this in the spoiler section. But if those of you don't want to hear spoilers, I don't want to give that up for you guys. One last thing I want to talk about too. One thing I was really happy about is I'm not going to even get to that because I'm going to say that for spoilers actually, so I can talk a little bit more about that too. With that said here, I do want to jump on over to the actual spoilers section. So if you guys do not want any spoilers, here is your chance to avoid these spoilers here. So if anything else, you can go ahead and scroll through this if you're watching this on YouTube and get to the I'm new to the Gundam franchise. Should I watch this series first? Otherwise, I'm going to be talking about some spoilers about the series alongside with my favorite suits, since I know a lot of that's going to be spoilers itself. Alright, so first thing I really want to talk about, let me just give us a little change of an environment here, because this image itself was a spoiler. I know I showed it earlier, but you wouldn't really think about it until you actually see a little bit more about this. And this is going to give me a lot more to talk about, because the first thing I want to talk about is the themes that Iron-Blooded Orphan covers, which is primarily family, friendship, or kinship, and love. Now, while some of these themes are not unfamiliar in the Gundam franchise, we see a lot of this, like, love, like in G Gundam, for an example, and friendship and kinship throughout many of the series in the Gundam franchise. We do see family in some aspects, and it's funny that I mentioned Gundam X earlier on, because it does have some family elements in there too. But Iron-Blooded Orphan really focuses more so on all those elements I mentioned, in addition to that, reutilizing or implementing the core elements of Gundam into them. Let me digress and give you a little bit more information from that point. So a lot of this series is really focusing on, of course, like I mentioned, Mikazuki and Orga. But we also focus on a lot of the members in Tekkadan and how they are basically a family with each other. And it's kind of weird because they try to talk about this like in an episode between Orga and Naze and try to understand and describe what a family is. And it kind of makes me think back to like the movies The Expendables, where they tried to talk about like what the different ideologies behind what is a man. It's the same thing here with what is a family. And Iron-Blooded Orphan tackles that, like saying like we have a family of like women, we have a family of war children, basically, or child soldiers. We have a family of royalty, like with the Gallahorn or the Seven Stars. So we kind of get like some glimpses of ideas of different ideologies about families. With Tekkadan, they're more focused on creating not exactly a brotherhood necessarily, but because they are all family related by war itself, that they are all bound because of conflict. And it's kind of interesting because this series is, again, a post-war series, long after the war, too. Again, in the series, took place 300 years after the Calamity War. So we don't really get a whole lot of, like, this war is hell core element. But what we do get is that there's conflict. There's a lot of these aspects that still transist over from the war, which, again, goes with that whole, not only is war as hell, but the whole, whoever wins, the innocent lose. In this case, they bring up like the I can't pronounce it, Alana Viana system with a lot of our characters, which were a external, not external, but like a biological external equipment utilized in the war. Sorry, I just spotted something. In addition to that, too, we also see, again, as I mentioned, almost everybody in our entire cast here are child soldiers. This is something that's elaborated a lot more in this series than it is in the other previous series we've seen. Characters up, and just quickly talking about that too, we get like Hiro Yui in Gundam Wing, but we don't really dive too much into him. You could technically say the other 4 Gundam pilots are also child soldiers themselves, but it's not really on the same level, and I'll get more into that too. Next one we have in child soldiers, it's Setsuna from Gundam 00, and you can also say the same thing with some of the celestial being characters themselves or other characters as well, and that we see that they were actually participating in war, they were fighting as child soldiers and stuff like that. So we get a little bit more of a bigger glimpse and a bigger picture, but they don't really utilize it to its fullest extent. Iron-Blooded Orphans takes the child soldiers concept and runs with it, like turning that dial to an 11. We not only see the impacts of what it is to be a child soldier, but how it impacts their life, their life expectancy, their perception of life itself, and how it impacts them from bonding. We get characters such as, oh my lord, I could not remember his name. he also died in the series. Let me just try and pull up his name really fast. Ashton. I put down their names here just so I can remember them. But Ashton was a character that kind of fascinated me a little bit in the second season. That's where I was talking about it kind of got slow, where we see how, like, this is a character, and we see this a lot with the human debris characters, where they don't feel a connection, they don't have this ability to connect, and they're just kind of living and waiting to die. And it's kind of sad and very hurtful, and they're trying to experience or get into the whole concept of family. And we see how Ashton bonds with Takumi. I'm trying to remember their names, some of them, because we see them and we don't, like, it's a huge cast. We have a huge cast here. Although some of them, like, externals we don't see, but like most of the primary ones are like right here in this core group right here. But yeah, we get this aspect of like how human debris looks. We see this throughout many of the human debris based characters too, where they don't value their lives, or they're just living. Some of them create some level of bonding and bonding and kinship, just like I was talking about, like how we have it with Tekiden. And then with overall how Orga is trying to create this family is more or less just understanding how everyone came to be, with this whole mindset of like they don't have a future necessarily, that they've been robbed of their future, and all they understood was fighting and conflict, and what they share all in common is not just that, but the blood on their hands. And I think that was kind of interesting, where they kind of mix in like it's a brotherhood, it's a friendship, kinship that operates like a family, and it's very unique and something we don't see at any higher capacity level in anything else in the entire Gundam franchise. So I thought that was very interesting, very unique, and really does play with the core elements and turning it in some different form. They utilize it, not just the tried and true method or the same old that we've seen, which is like war is hell, whoever wins the innocent lose, there's a lack of communication. No, they take a lot of those elements and then they not flip it, but implement it in different ways. So I think that Iron-Blooded Orphans does a fantastic job of just playing around with a lot of that. I was also mentioned about how like families can be negative, right? Or like how not negative itself, but like how we see or perceive families. And I mentioned about the royalty with the Gallowhorn or the 7 stars. And I thought that was kind of interesting because a lot of the characters, with the exception of McGillis, we see a lot of these characters coming about, like, you know, their royalty. They think so highly of themselves. They're very arrogant and ignorant about the people around them. They don't value or think about how child soldiers or human debris live, or think of them as human beings, which is very sad and tragic. And then you get characters who are not only of that level, but of the arrogance, the frustrating kind of arrogance, where they think they are so high and mighty and that they can't do no wrong. And they're really, really frustrating because of the stupid things that they do. Sorry, I had something in my throat again. I will talk about Eok later on, though, when I get to talk about our character spoilers and stuff like that. But just really want to go back to the family aspect, though. It's like we really want to talk about how families between, like, kind of between the Tekiden and Gallowhorn, it's just being true to themselves and to others. And then when we get Gallowhorn too, we get that, you know, the royalty, the family lineage has bred this ignorance, this hate, this arrogance, and then it perpetuates something negative. And I think it's kind of funny if you think about it in this perspective too, because this is a family lineage that has gone on for 300 years, in the sense. The 7 stars formed because of the end of the Calamity War, and they've been persisting throughout to keep order and peace. If you think about it, the family started off originally with good intentions, that they wanted to have a lineage to protect the world that they know. but as the lineage continues, their what makes them good or what makes them wanting to be good gets diluted with every generation, and not a level of softness but a level of corruption and softness occurs. So I think that's kind of interesting, where we see a budding family like with Tekiden, and they grow so strongly together, and even as they continue along with their short life, it's not it doesn't get muddled down. Although Orga does kind of falter at some points, it still stays strong, and everybody is a family together. So that was something I thought that was very unique with Gundam Iron-Blooded Orphans. Alongside with that, the story is pretty interesting too. I think. Oh, I forgot to mention too with the family aspects too. More or less with the friendship or kinship, it really shines with McGillis and Galio and their storyline together. I want to talk a little bit more when I break them down as characters too, but I really liked how they really played up and messed around with a lot of the Gundam tropes that we're familiar with. In this case, those two are both Char and Garma clones. But going back to the whole friendship kinship thing, I think they played pretty well with adding that in there. It's something of a trope that we've kind of seen since, I want to say, more or less with Gundam Seed. It's not something we would see prevalent through previous other series, but this very, not a little bit of a dynamic, but conflicting friendship, if you will. I mean, you almost could say it's almost as early as Char and Amuro, but they didn't start off as friends. And so I just got a couple more things I want to talk about, and I want to jump into like spoilers for characters, because I really love the characters in this entire series, so there's a lot for me to really dive into. But let me just talk about a couple more things I want to just shout out, because I thought these are really cool. In the earlier episodes in the first season, when we first get introduced to Naze and the turbines, really liked the episode where they do the whole shipboarding and stuff like that. That was really awesome, really good usage of shipboarding. We do see shipboarding in other other series of the Gundam franchise, but it's like hit and miss. Sometimes it's like it really plays up, like in the original Mobile Suit Gundam with Rumble Raw trying to infiltrate or not infiltrate, but like board White Base, and then it could be like it's all right. I can't think of one off the top of my head. Necessary. I feel like something in Gundam X almost, but I'm not gonna try and play it off my head at the moment here. But Iron-Blooded Orphans does a really good job of implementing it a couple of times with this shipboarding and how effective it can be, like how successful or really impactful it can be. So I thought that was really cool, especially with like how the combat in this series tends to be dragged out, not dragged out in a bad way, dragged out in a good way, and against the odds. The way they played it off with that shipboarding was really cool. So I liked seeing that and how it was implemented. I also like how they, again, utilize more melee and physical based weapons or ballistics, right? They don't really utilize beam weaponry, which is so common in every single Gundam series since the original. I really like how they just went back to basics, and it's not exactly explained away with the armoring of, or the armor compositing for these suits, because a lot of them, not a lot of them, but every single one of them are nano laminated, if I remember correctly. They mentioned it a couple of times, but we really see it shine once Hashmail, the mobile armor, appears in second season. That's the only time we ever really see a beam weapon, and I still argue whether or not it's a not a hyper, but a mega particle cannon, or is just a beam rifle or a beam shot itself. But either way, seeing a lot less of the beam weaponry too gives a lot more of that, again, emphasis on like longer, dragged out fights rather than these quick spur of the moment kind of fights, these quicker sorties throughout every single episode. So I really like that a lot. Again, gives a lot of oomph to the fights, because they have to do with like melee weapons. They have to use like machine guns, or like the smoothbore, like for the Barbados, or just like, I love a lot of like the melee weapons that they utilize here, especially with Barbados, because it's like all those hits are just very like it's satisfying to see. At the same time, it's just brutal. Like aiming for like certain limbs or seeing a cockpit getting caved in. It's just like, whoa. When those hits happen, it's amazing. It's crazy. Speaking of whoa, and I'm gonna break my one rule here. Sorry about that. I'm gonna break my one rule here, and I have to cuss because I need to give emphasis here. And usually I don't want to do that, but here's my one time I'm gonna break it, and it's really talking about the holy shit moments in Iron-Blooded Orphans. Iron-Blooded Orphans has a lot of these moments. It's a lot of awesome moments, but there are some moments in this series where it's a huge shocker. It's like a holy shit, right? And that's the best way I can describe it. It happens a few times throughout the entire series. Some of you, and I'm not, since we're in the spoiler section, the biggest ones that really hit me the hardest, like, wait, what? And it didn't hit me as hard as it was in the second time I watched it because I was paying more, obviously I knew what happened, but paying more attention to it was Lofner's and Orga's deaths. I think both of them were very, very well done, and the shock factor behind them still is impactful even after the fact I know what was going to happen. Personally, and it sounds really weird when I say this, but I think Lafner's death is probably one of the best scenes I've ever seen in the Gundam franchise. Here's what I mean by that. It's the whole build-up to it. It's kind of strange, and this is the best way I can describe it. It's the build-up, because we only got, like, what, 10 minutes, 15 minutes of it? And we're getting this whole build-up between Lofner and Akihiro. We're getting their bonding and all of that. But then we get some cuts into Jastly trying to plan to stir the bee's nest with Tekkadan. And then we go to Ozzy and then Lafner just doing some shopping. And everything just kind of plays off along with the pace very quickly, but very well done. And like I think some people like got that inclination something bad's gonna happen. And then for viewers like myself, I'm like, I kind of put the pieces, but it wasn't until we got right there. And everything led up cinematically, like shot by shot. And the subtle things that we kind of put in there, right? Like we would see like the walk up of the hitman or the hitman behind the glass. And all of it when it happens, it just happens so fast. And it's like one of those like, no, they didn't just do that. That didn't just happen. Holy shit, that really did happen. And it just like, it blows your mind away. And I thought that the way that they build up to that entire scene and just the aftermath was just amazing. So I thought that was so well directed, so well, I want to say shot, but it's not shot, so well animated then. And built scene by scene, shot by shot. Great. Orga, while not as impactful as Lofner, though, still has its impact itself. And it was a very same build up. And it was one of those like you didn't expect it to happen. Kind of makes me think back to what I want to talk about, like on themes and stuff like that. The series has that, again, that Victory Gundam. It's very oppressive about what's going on, especially with second season, where like we keep going along and we are hoping, we want our characters to succeed so much, but as we keep going along, there's so many like pitfalls, so many missteps, and so many things that cause them to falter. It's just a wonder that they do succeed towards the end. Or I don't know if you want to call it succeeding or anything like that, but it's still very impressive. And it just, the writing itself, I really enjoyed that build up. I do want to talk about the ending episode. I'm going to save that for later, but I want to talk about characters. Now this series is not short for characters itself. I don't know how else to start it off. I want to start just with some characters that I just want to just talk about overall, right? So let me just start off with McGillis and Galio. I've already mentioned them already as they are the quintessential Char clone and Garma clone. Char clones are a dime a dozen in the Gundam franchise. You cannot watch a Gundam series without having a Char clone for the most part. Sometimes we don't have them, but like 80% of the Gundam franchise has, or 80% of the Gundam series have a Char clone in there. And usually the antagonist, or it could be a protagonist too. Now, the more rare Garma clone, though, that's something we don't see as often. And if I'm not mistaken, by my count here, this is our third Garma clone in the entire Gundam franchise. Our first one being in F91, Cecily's brother, and then we get another Garma clone in was it Turn A? Was it? I'm trying to remember where we got our Garma clone. I'm trying to remember back to any of the previous series. I had to look back and think harder on that one, but. Point being, though, I like how not only we just get our clones, and they weren't just going to be the exact same thing, because they do play out something similar. Char plotting away, and Garma just having all this admiration and love towards Char, being blind to the fact that Char is going to backstab him at one point or another. But Iron-Blooded Orphan flips this around a little bit. In fact, that, yes, we do get the whole betrayal. Yes, we get the whole completion of these character tropes. But they added more, and they flip it around that now Char is no longer the, he's still aspiring, he's still got his schemes and stuff like that. But we have our Garma clone, our Galio, now becoming a mini Char himself, masking up, trying to find his own means, and coming to terms with the betrayal that had occurred from McGillis. It goes right back to the themes of this series here with the whole friendship, kinship kind of a thing. And I think it's kind of funny. So by second season, after McGillis succeeds with his one scheme to finally come into play with the 7 stars, while everything was lining up, he now starts to keep failing and failing, which is something we don't often see with a Char clone. Usually they fail with their overall scheme, but not on a consecutive level of failure. And McGillis's failures are kind of interesting because it's like, wow, he's screwing up. I mean, this is a guy who has so much conviction in what he wants to do, but he keeps faltering. What's up with this? What's going on with that? And then you start seeing with Galio trying to figure out or understand, like, him trying to understand more about why McGillis did, in a sense. Like, he's upset, he's frustrated, but why did my best friend betrayed me for all of this? What's his point? And he kind of got, besides getting the monologue in the I believe it was the season finale for first season, or was it the second to last? I can't remember exactly, but he knows the reason, but he wants to understand not just the motive, but the reason behind the motive, like why McGillis truly did this. Like, did our friendship mean anything? Or was I really just a stepping stone for you? Is kind of like where Galio is coming from. And I really like that they really played that up. And it's funny how Galio's on the up and up, catching up, and as McGillis is falling back with all of his schemes and completely just goes for bust, quite literally. And it's kind of sad. It's interesting because we always see a Char clone pretty much succeed with the exception of the major overall action. When we finally see McGillis fail, and then we had that final confrontation between McGillis and Galio in the hallway, everything comes to a not just a boiling point, but it finites the whole entire theme of that whole friendship, kinship kind of a thing. And it ties right back to family. Because Galio confronts McGillis and says, like, why did you do this to me or whatnot? Like, I loved you like a friend. I loved you like family. Carla loved you. How could you do this to us? I know you wanted to do this, but I don't think this is what you really wanted. And he wanted to hate McGillis so much, but he loves him, still admires him. Why don't you see me? Is what Galio says. And McGillis comes back with him. It's like, Galio, it's not that I didn't see you. It's because I was pretending not to see you. And McGillis explains, and what he explains hits home with all of this. McGillis explains that it's not that I didn't see you, I pretended not to see you. Because if I had seen you and I acknowledged you as a friend, family, a brother to me, I could not do what I needed to do. I could not go along, not exactly quote, paraphrasing at this point, but basically not being able to go along with his ultimate plan to take over the 7 stars, and then overall changing Gjallarhorn from the inside. So it was a completely different perspective because, kind of like Char himself, we see that McGillis had thrown away friendship, has thrown away family, he has thrown away love. The only thing he would do is he would keep his promises, but he had thrown everything else away. And he thought that in his pursuit for absolute power, that is how you proceeded. I want to tie this back to Tekkadan a little bit, right? Tekkadan is in a similar manner where Orga wants to obtain more strength, more power for Tekkadan. So that way, not that he could change the wrongs, and I want to backtrack a little bit back to McGillis here. McGillis wants to correct the wrongs, the evils of the world. And he thought about doing it by power. Orga wants to get more power because he wants to build a better life for his family. And the only way that he could pursue that was to get more power. But instead of casting aside friendship, casting aside others, might have casted away love to an extent, but I think, and not placating like some kind of level of homosexual love or anything like that, but the brotherly love he had for Mikazuki, that drive that Mikazuki also gave towards Orga, allowed him to want to facilitate and utilize his friendship, his kinship, his family to pursue this ultimate power to provide to everybody else. Now, this is where I would say, like, it's almost like they parallel with each other, where we have Orga utilizing family to gain more power. And then we have McGillis here, who has casted aside all family, all friends, all love in the pursuit of power. And both of them also try to pursue it in the fastest means possible. And that's where I'm like, while they are on similar paths and they are parallel to each other, they're not the same, but the end results are still the same. They kind of went perpendicular with each other in some levels, and that's what caused them to falter from their goals. Orga got a little bit lost in what he's trying to do, and McGillis, overconfident in what he's trying to do and not really relying on others and trying to treat people like pawns, lost out in all of that. So I thought that was just kind of fascinating with how they utilize these characters. And going back to McGillis and Galio, it makes me kind of wonder and want to do like a what if. What if McGillis did partner up or try to communicate better with Galio and emphasize more on the whole, like, hey, you're my friend. Let me try and show you what you're thinking wrongly about your heritage, about the royalty of the Seven Stars, and why Gallowhorn is corrupt. He never tried to do that. And Galio, on his own fault too, couldn't see beyond his own errors and ways because he only saw it in one perspective and didn't really think about others until he met Ein. Unfortunately, Ein is a weird character because he got like, oh, you know, like all space rats should die because I was a space rat. I know how they thought or whatnot, but he didn't understand Tekkadan, and neither did Galio as well. Not until the very end, unfortunately. Which is kind of funny. We get it at the very end, and it's not just him, but Julieta actually understands it more so in realizing errors of her ways. She's actually someone I want to talk about next. But just to close off here with McGillis and Galio, I think it's just, again, fascinating, turning the heads on the tropes or these Garma and Char clones, and while they do complete and fulfill their trope destinies, they get a second life, and then they pursue it in a different manner. So I thought that was awesome, cool, unique, and something brand new to the Gundam franchise. Now, I mentioned about Julieta as well. So again, this being my second watch of Iron-Blooded Orphans, the first time around when I watched this, I really hated Julieta. I thought that she was a one-dimensional character who was trying to get strength for a dude who is absolutely corrupt and evil. The person, like, she's like, I don't want to serve anybody who's like doing all these evil things and who are adults who are trying to manipulate and change people. And even Russell confronts her later on, like towards at the very last episode, and confronts like, I am that very person you hate. Or no, that wasn't the last episode. It was like towards the last episode. So I thought it's just hypocritical of this character and why she's doing this. And this is where I was talking about, like, a little bit of that poor writing, like, why is she like that? But I try to digress and I think about it in an opposite standpoint. She's young, she's stupid, she's naive, and it requires time sometimes to realize these sort of things. Dang it, my throat just itches. And it gets kind of frustrating with her when she keeps proclaiming, like, oh, I want to gain strength because of this and this and this, and she's just being a hypocritical character. But, and we kind of get this at the very end, after she does all these horrible things and screw a lot of our characters over in Tekiden, like Shino's final shot, messing with the Tekiden support, like they're trying to run away, and overall, you know, she not really killing Mikasa, but at least lancing the head of Barbados. But at the very end, she kind of realizes, like, wait a second, like, everything that we were doing was wrong, and Tekiden was just trying to survive. They were just trying to do their own things. I mean, she also had saw a lot of the corruption, like things that Eok had done, and I think by the very end, she realizes the thing that Russell has done, but I don't know whether or not she truly forgives Russell for what he did, for using her in that manner or anything like that, but I'm not too sure. But I guess she was kind of right in the sense that she felt like Russell was the path towards righteousness, and maybe Russell was trying to do something else. We don't get a whole lot with Russell though, but maybe he was onto something. I have no idea. That's a little bit of a frustrating point, but I was glad to see that at the very end when she was with Galio, and then she recalls the events and looking back at Tekiden, and she's like, we were wrong. They were just trying to survive. They were more human than us, and we shouldn't have treated them as so. And Galio actually, at some level, acknowledges this too, but not so much so. That being said, I want to move on to, so yeah, Julieta, I have some frustration with her. She's slightly redemptive, not by a whole lot. She's not as one-dimensional until the very end, but she's one-dimensional for the most part. It's kind of irritating and frustrating, and she almost comes off like a Jared in this series too, because she's always trying to, I want to be stronger, but I can't beat him because he got the Alea Viana, I said it right now, Alea Viana system, and I was like, But moving on, another character that I want to talk about is Rustle. Throughout second season, that's when we are introduced to him for the most part. He's that manipulating, conniving character, almost like it's like two Chars pit against each other. The only difference, he doesn't wear a mask necessarily. He wears a personality mask, but that's about it. I just thought it was kind of weird at the very end, where after McGillis is done, and they call it the McGillis incident, stuff like that, that he literally turns a new leaf and basically stole a page out of McGillis's book, the page of the finale, where he wants to do what McGillis was trying to do, reform Gallowhorn. I didn't think that he would want to do that, but it's a little bit of a stretch of a character. The only thing I could think of in justification, I need more information on this though, but the only thing I can think of is that because of what had transpired in events throughout the entire series, or at least second season, the only path he had left to go to was to reform Gallowhorn. Maybe he did have a change of heart, maybe after realizing something with Julieta and stuff like that. I'm not too sure, but what we do know is that he changes to be from this cold-hearted, ruthless person to obtain more power to someone who actually took all that power after doing it in the most ruthless way possible, and then reforming it to be better, at least from what we can understand in the exposition of the epilogue. I thought that was just a little bit weird from Rustle, but I mean, yay. I mean, he did the right thing, I guess, despite being an absolute scumbag doing it. We won't know unless we dive a little bit more into like more mythos behind this character, but this is all we have so far. Now, my next character I really want to talk about. I was holding back on this one for a little bit, but Yakujan. I'm pretty sure anybody who's watched this series hates Yakujan. And I hate Yakujan with a burning passion. He's like right up there with my top tier characters. I absolutely hate. he fits the descriptions of like he's an arrogant character who doesn't acknowledge their own actions, their own stupidity, quite literally, and literally putting everybody else in danger, and somehow they come out unscathed. It's absolutely frustrating with Eok. But he plays actually pretty pivotal. As much as I want to hate him, he plays pivotal to a lot of the themes in Iron-Blooded Orphans, especially in the second season. And he plays towards what McGillis has always been talking about, which is the corruption of Gallowhorn and the royalty of the Seven Stars. Now, we kind of got a little bit of this in the first season with Galio being an arrogant, uptight person and really trashing on human debris and Tekkadan until he really meets Ein for the most part and develops through Ein. Eok keeps this huge pride mentality about himself, like, we are the Seven Stars, we are from royal lineage, we can do no wrong, and that, you know, I will gallantly go into the fight and do the right thing, but everything he's doing is absolutely wrong, and he refuses, and I can't tell, and I'm pretty sure it's not that he's refusing to acknowledge what he is doing is wrong, it's that he is so starry-eyed about his royal heritage, that the Seven Stars and what Gallowhorn is, that it's like a mental block that he's not acknowledging the damage that he is doing to the world around him. And I think it's just also, it goes back to that royalty, that they feel that they can do no wrong, that they don't see how it's really impacting others because all they care about is themselves. So I thought that was kind of interesting how they paralleled out with the themes of this series here with family. Doesn't mean I don't get pissed off at him. God. His stupidity cost Shino's life, screwed up a lot of things, also cost the lives of people in is it correct? It started CHRY, Cryer. It's the other part in Mars, and it caused a lot of farmers to die, basically, because he deviated Hashmail the Mobile Armor's path to them. God, so frustrating. I'm so glad that he died, too. By the hands of Akihiro, nonetheless. It's justified, and, like, I love how Akihiro acknowledges this, too. Like, you know what? You live long enough, sometimes you get to reap the bounties of it. And he got to kill the dude who basically got Ashton killed. So I'm like, Ashton and, oh yeah, it was just Ashton primarily. So I'm like, yes. Like that. Got his due justice. Another character that I do hate too is Jasly Dolomikos. Now, it's kind of weird, like, it was like, I know some people would say, like, you should hate Jasly just as much as Eok. Hear me out. As much as I want to hate Jasly, I can't hate him as much as Eok. But then again, it becomes an argument between, you know, do you hate blind ignorance, or do you hate malicious intent? They're almost both equal. I just hated Eok more because it's like he's doing it intentionally, but he's blocking out the stupidity of the things he's done and not acknowledging the damage he's doing. Whereas Jasly knows exactly what he's doing. He's just, I mean, what do you expect from a mob-esque character? They have the intent to get more power, which is another theme in this series, right? Get more power. And he's going to do it in the most sadistic, vile ways possible, not caring who he's going to crush it or kill to get that power. And yes, because of Jasly, a lot of people died as well. Well, yeah, a lot of people ended up dying because he basically got the turbines wiped out, got Lafner killed, got Naze and Amida killed, and caused a lot of pain and strife for Tekkadan, which also played key towards later on. So yes, he's pretty pivotal. I'd say Eok is on the same level too. So they're on equal levels of hatred. But Jasly, it's a character you want to hate. Like, not want to hate, but you hate, right? And he's built that way. Not the same thing that you would argue as Eok. God, Jasly. So glad he got the justice deserved by Mikasa. Mikazuki! Why do I say Mikasa a lot? I'm trying to think of like a series that the word Mikasa comes, or the name Mikasa comes from. I don't know, but I keep saying Mikasa. Tying it in with Mikazuki, though, Kudelia. Now, if you're familiar with some of my other reviews, and I've said it in the past before too, I'm not a huge fan of pacifistic characters. In fact, I tend to hate a lot of them. Well, not a whole lot of them, but most of them I strongly dislike. Because not a lot of these pacifistic characters get other characters killed. It's just that it tends to cause a lot of conflict and strife. Kudelia is one of these characters where she tries to start off, and you could almost say the same thing with, not Meredith is her name. It was, Meribit. Same thing with Meribit too, but she's not as much as Kudelia. Kudelia is kind of like trying to like, I want to like, you know, work on a revolution. I want to help the people. I want to do all this stuff like that. But she doesn't come off as a pacifist as much, but she's like, oh, you shouldn't be doing that. And, you know, I'll throw Meribit in there too, because she persists more so than Kudelia. Kudelia stops by first season. You know, she's trying to help the revolution on Mars to go against Gallahorn because of the things that Gallahorn does. They're corrupt. Sorry about that, guys. They're corrupt and stuff like that. They're frustrating. And Kudelia is like, you guys shouldn't be fighting. You're just children and stuff like that. Or like, you know, trying to meet on terms with them. And I think that the whole handshake between her and Mikazuki were really, really strong. I really like the scene where she goes like, here, let's shake on it. And Mikazuki's like, I can't shake your hand. My hands are incredibly dirty. And she just retracts and goes like, oh. And he's like, so we were never really on equal terms then, even though that she was trying to help them out and stuff like that. And she kind of flips her little narrative around from being like, you know, you shouldn't be doing this to like, okay, I want to support more of Tekken. I want to support more of these freedom fighters and stuff like that. So that's why I'm like, Kudelia didn't get that annoying as a pacifist. More Meribit though, because Meribit kept on going with the whole, Orga, you shouldn't be telling the kids to do this. Orga, you shouldn't be encouraging everybody to do this. Orga, you should be speaking against this. So she's more of that pacifistic character, but I think it's just more than negligence. Like it's not negligence. It's just that she knows what's going on, the internal strife with all of these kids, but she doesn't want that fate for them. And she's just kind of like, I'm powerless and helpless to stop them. So we kind of get a little bit of the pacifism characters like this, but most of the pacifism subsides. But what's really annoying about Kudelia is that I feel like she was pretty much done. Well, no, she comes here and throughout. She's not like other pacifistic characters where they should have been done earlier on and not pushed further. I think she's like an upgraded version of Marita Ishmael from Gundam 00, and that Kudelia actually still plays a pivotal part for everybody throughout the entire series. I think what's kind of irritating a little bit is the love story that they try to push, or this love harem between Mikazuki, oh my gosh, I can't remember her name now. Kudelia, and we had I want to say Mita for some odd reason. I know it's not Mita. My brain's derping. Let me try and remember. Not Lofner. No. Not. I'm trying to remember names. This is terrible of me. Let me just try and pull it up. Characters. There we go. I swear to God, it's Atra. God, why could I not remember her name? Well, let me paraphrase here. So I think the love story between, you know, Mikazuki, Atra, and Kudelia was the one thing that was aggravating. Now, Atra herself didn't irritate me as much because she and Mikazuki actually had a true bond. They knew each other when they were much younger. They grew up with each other for at least a few years that we were aware of. And she has that genuine love. Kudelia was just more or less just interested in Mikazuki, but I'm like, I don't understand why. What was her fascination with Mikazuki? And it just felt like poor writing. Was like, oh, she was fascinated with him, or she was enamored with him in some perspective or aspect. But Mikazuki is a dull character. He's like the most silent of silent protagonists beyond Hiro Yui, you know? I couldn't understand what was her fascination. It's like she was like Relina Peacecraft to Hiro, Kudelia to Mikazuki. Why? what is the connection or the fascination or attraction to these characters? I'm not going to question it too much because, love makes you do stupid things, or your attractions to people make you do stupid things. So, I mean, that's one thing, but I just thought it was just kind of interesting how they were trying to pair them all up like this. Interesting relationship, too, because we don't see anything like this in the Gundam franchise, especially with the turbans, how they are all wives to Naze and stuff like that. So I thought that was kind of interesting. They try to loop it all in together with these three here. I thought it was kind of interesting. Nice. But really, really forced with Kudelia, at least. I couldn't get it behind it necessarily, but always happy for a main character, especially the terrible things that happened to Mikazuki and everything else. Yeah. Lastly, and this is the last character I really want to dive into that I find super fascinating, was Mikazuki himself. Our main and lead protagonist. Actually, I find that our protagonists in this entire series is actually Orga and Mikazuki. Because they're opposites of each other, right? We have, both of them are driven to do things. However, Orga is the orchestrator, and then Mikazuki is the operator, So I thought it was kind of interesting in those parallels with these kind of characters. They're in the same direction, but they do exactly different things. I say that he's one of the oddest protagonists, not just because he's a silent character, but I feel like throughout the entire series, he was just riding along. He wasn't really much of a personality or a character. He was just, I'm here and I'm gonna do things. And he was like literally a service dog, not a service dog, but like an attack dog for Orga. The moment Orga says go, and Mikasa's gonna go do it. And that Mikazuki, Mika. I'm just gonna call him Mika. But Mika would just do it, and I mean that's his character to the bare bones. But I just felt like for a protagonist, he was just strung along through majority of the episodes. Just strung along. Quite literally, he was like a puppet because this is why I didn't want to show this picture earlier on. Oh, excuse me, I apologize. Oh my gosh. But this is why I didn't want to show this picture earlier on, though, is that Mikazuki is slowly losing his bodily, not bodily functions, but his body itself, especially at the end of first season. And could only be used like the mobile suit itself, like some kind of puppet almost. So I thought it was just kind of interesting in that perspective. Other than that, too, I was kind of questioning, just like how I would say this is one of the more darker series of the Gundam franchise. I think it's interesting that Mikazuki, I want to say that he's probably the most silent protagonist of the entire Gundam franchise. I think between him, Hiro, and Setsuna, which are all child soldiers, contend with just being the most silent of them all. I can't tell, but I think it's a really good runoff between Hiro and Mika for the most part. That's all I really want to say. It's just kind of a weird, odd main character, but he's not bad. So last thing I really want to talk about is the final episode of the entire series. I really, really liked the episode. Not that it's the greatest of all final episodes or anything, but it's a really good final episode. I really liked it. And I understand that some fans are not too happy with the final episode because, especially with the tone of the entire series, how dark and very oppressing it can be. And every single time they are like little flowers trying to grow up, someone's just stamping on them down, right? Stamping on them down. But the final episode kind of goes in lieu with the final episode of the first season, where they do succeed, or in some case succeed in at least surviving. I say in this manner with this here is just that as much as everything kept on going down, Shit's Creek basically for them, they actually survived and pushed through. I'm like, and seeing that they survived, it wasn't just like, oh, it's just trying to write a happy ending for them. I didn't really see that as a happy ending necessarily. It's still a little bit bittersweet, but for a good few of our characters, they got the endings that they kind of deserved, at least, because they fought for it. They literally fought the entire series for it. I thought they deserved it. Speaking of like, like an ending too, I was really, and this is the biggest thing I really want to talk about, was I was really happy to see an actual epilogue. And it's not just like a brief one or anything like that. It's actually a really long epilogue. We got about 10 minutes of the episode regarding the epilogue or closing of the series. The reason I bring this up is because the last several series before Iron-Blooded Orphans really didn't have an epilogue, if at all had one. It starts off with Gundam Seed, Seed Destiny, Gundam Age. We really don't get much of a ending with these series. We get the end of the conflict, awesome. But the one thing that really drives with me with Gundam is the characters. And I want to know what happens to our characters after the fact of the matter. Yes, some people can argue that the original Gundam set that standard because when the series ended, we don't know what really happened to our characters other than they're all reunited at the lifeboat or the shuttle or the launch, and we get a little thing saying like, oh, on this date of January 1st, 0080, the war between Zeon and Federation ended due to a peace treaty being signed. That was it. Yeah, okay, I get that. Sure. But the problem with that, though, is that it has to be consistent with every single series, and this was a series that was getting canceled. So I don't see a very good excuse or an explanation for any other series to follow that kind of a footstep. When you had plenty of time, when we spent so much time with our characters, we could still just commit to like maybe 10, 15 minutes of the final episode, having after a really awesome fight and conclusion, to really get to find out what happens to our characters. And those series really, really disappoint. Yes, some of the series had some redemption in either like a compilation movie or a follow-up sequel movie. Or oh, I forgot to mention Gundam 00. I'm just trying to think. So like, again, let me rephrase all of that. I'm getting myself lost here. So one thing I really liked about the final episode is that we actually get an epilogue. You see, the last several several Gundam series did not provide an epilogue. They might have an ending or a very smidgen bit, but not a true epilogue. This started off with Gundam Seed, then went into Seed Destiny, Gundam 00, Gundam Age. All of these series do not have a true finite, like, good epilogue. Yes, we might get some of them giving us an epilogue, but for the most part, it ends off with just a series ending after the final conflict, and then a little tidbit here. And then some of them might have it fixed up in a compilation movie or in a sequel movie, but not really truly giving us a full epilogue of our characters. I mean, we watch a 50-episode series with all these characters. I think we would want to know what happens to them after the fact of the matter. Now, some people would argue, well, the original Gundam did this. And I'm like, yes, the original Gundam did this. The original Gundam ended off with, like, after the final fight and all that jazz like that, everybody meeting on the launch and then concluding with saying, like, the war has ended. But this was a series that was being canceled, and it ended on the 43rd episode, or 42 if you're looking at the US release. So that's not a really good excuse when you're thinking about series that did not get canceled. They got a full run, and we didn't even get, like, a good solid 5-10 minutes with our characters. The last time we actually get an epilogue was way back in 1999 at this point here with Turn A Gundam. We actually get a really nice 5-minute epilogue that is done through a series of montages. But why can't we get it with the other series? I don't know why. And it frustrates me because we spend all of our time with characters throughout any Gundam series, and we don't get to find out anything else other than, oh, conflict's over. All right, closing the book on this series. We're done here. I didn't like that. Iron-Blooded Orphans ends very nicely. It could, lead to a potential sequel or anything like that, but it ends so nicely, giving us the conclusion that we want for our characters. Either it be good or bad, but we get conclusions for our characters, and I really, really like that a lot. I want to have that nice conclusion, and I think Iron-Blooded Orphans ends so poignantly, so wonderfully with that epilogue. All right, so that's all I have to say when it comes to spoilers for this series, or not spoilers, but the series overall. But what I want to get to next is actually talking about my favorite suits of the series. Now, if you're not familiar with this segment here, this is where I like to talk about, of course, my favorite suits of the series. Now, with every single series that comes into the Gundam franchise, they introduce brand new suits, redesigns, new battleships, those sort of things. Iron-Blooded Orphans is absolutely no different to this fact of the matter, because it is an absolutely different universe here, and it brings a ton of new different designs. Some of them might harken back to some designs that we're more familiar with, like Zaku-based designs, or with, of course, Gundam-based designs, but a lot of them are newer and unique. So the very first one I want to kind of bring up too, and just want to really, really quickly glance over here. I forgot to put them up here as well. Oh no, where is, here we go. But I just want to show off some things here, regarding this. But one of my favorite suits from this series here is the Greys. I actually really like a lot of the design features and details behind it. Like, a lot of these suits are very detailed. You're gonna notice too, something that I really like about the suits in this series is that they're very armory and bony. I don't know how else to describe it. Like, you'll start seeing with some of the other designs, but like, they're very bare bonesy, very straightforward with what they have, and it's really nice on the designs. It's very different, very, not alien, I would say, but very unique. The one thing I just didn't like about the Greys types, so they had the mono screen, almost like mono. It's funny, they have a mono screen, and then this top thing pops up, and it has a mono eye. I actually do not understand the function of that thing, and I think it looks kind of lame. I like how every single Gundam series tries to change up or bring in this whole, like, mono look to it, right? Be it like, an original Zaku beeping eye, or like the blinking, not blinking eye, but the single blink with the monotone, or maybe like Gundam Age with the UE suits. But this one right here, where it's like the suits will like pop open the top and you can see the eye and it's like going kind of crazy a little bit. I just thought it kind of looked lame. It wasn't cool. It has a little bit of a sound effect to it, but not that much. But I just like the overall look of this suit, though. Not too much of the functionality is necessary, but I like the overall look. Let me just bring it over here so I don't lose it. Another favorite one that I liked, too, was the Gundam Guccian. I don't like it in this picture right here, but in the series, it looks really, really cool looking. It's very Toad-esque looking. Fits Kudel very well as a character, but I just like the actual look, like from the body looks and the head. I really like a lot of that aspect. It kind of reminds me of like a lot of amphibious mobile suits, almost like a Kapul or a Hygog. So I really, really like just the look of this suit overall. Some of the functions and weapons it has, it's not too bad, but I just kind of like how it looks overall. It's a very unique design for a Gundam. You don't get a fat Gundam ever. Another one I really like, and it's taking on the Greys look, is the Greys Ritters. We got a couple of Greys Ritters throughout the entire series. I really like McGillis's custom colors, though, for his. We first see this with Carta Issue, and I didn't care for her suit look or custom colors, but I really like this one. He has like the dual long swords and stuff like that. The shoulder pads make it look really cool, and that little headpiece kind of reminds me of like Tallgeese at some point. So really, really like this design. Really cool, kind of elegant with the bony, almost knight-like. So really cool. Now we're gonna get to some of my top tier favorites here, and we're gonna kick it off with Gundam Vidar. I don't know what it is about Gundam Vidar, and like again, you can see like a lot of these bony perspectives, a lot of these like points and features, very, very detaily. But I just love this suit's design overall. Its function too is kind of cool with the like multiple javelin spears and stuff like that. But I just love its overall look. I wish we had a better close-up of its face, because there's a lot of times we see these close-ups of this Gundam's face as it turns around and looks and stuff like that. Really cool, really neat looking design. I love also the color choices that mix between the blue and the red. So really nice, really, really neat looking Gundam. My next one that I really, really liked here is the one enunciation for is the Bile. They call it Bile Gundam, but to me, I will always call it Bale. It makes me think of like Diablo 2, Lord of Destruction Bale. But yeah, I really like the Gundam Bale. I'm not gonna call it Bile. I hate that. Bile. Ew. Bale. I like Gundam Bale's look. Overall, very unique for Gundam because we don't get something that looks like this for a Gundam itself. They're almost demonic looking because they are supposed to be kind of like demons in its subtle tones here. Subtle, not so subtle. But I like the wingspan on it, and then the dual swords that it uses too. It's a really cool looking suit. Kind of sad that McGillis trashes this thing, and I feel like it could have been better used. But if we're going to talk about my absolute favorite suit from this series, I loved a lot of the Barbados line suits, but I mean, pretty much anybody who watched the finale or the build up to the finale too, it's the Barbados Lupus Rex. This thing is a absolute freaking beast and a monster of a Gundam. Savage, brutal, and visceral in its attacks and its abilities to fight. It is nuts. Such a really cool and just harsh design. Really love it. The tail function of it reminds me like what we saw earlier with Hashmail, the mobile armor, the like not even gauntlets, it's literally like claws for hands, ripping up suits, smashing things. It's got a really cool not a sword mace is what they call it, right? I don't know what they call it here. But it had like a gigantic mace mixed in with a giant sword. So it's really, really cool with that. I also liked how, with spoilers with the final episode too, when he's going full on with the Leia Viana at like, I don't know what you want to call it, like Unbound or something like that. As it makes movements and it's attacking suit from suit, it actually has these like wolf sound effects. So like it's like howling sound effects or growling and stuff like that. So I thought that was really cool how they added those subtle sound, like subtle, but like it is subtle itself. Subtle sound effects when he's attacking all these multiple Grays units and stuff like that. So such a cool suit, such a cool design, and man, this is such a savage suit. But that's all I gotta say when it comes to my favorite suits of the series here. So let me go ahead and just do this, get us moving along. So I can put this over here. All right, and let me just try to alert our viewers here who do not want spoilers. All right, so let me just cut it down to here for you guys here. Hopefully you caught that, so you guys can just come back and view this on the video, or if you're on the stream here, so you can catch on and unmute me here. So I got to talk about pretty much everything I wanted to talk about here when it comes to Iron-Blooded Orphans, but I do have one more thing I want to talk about. Oh, well, a couple more things, but still, let me just start off with this, and it's one of my other segments here, which is I'm new to the Gundam franchise. Should I start with Iron-Blooded Orphans first? Yes, you can start with Iron-Blooded Orphans first. It's a little bit weird when I say some of these things, but here's primarily the points why I say yes. This is a solid standalone series, and it's very self-contained. You don't need to watch any of the previous Gundam series to get into this series, nor do you need any backstory or anything like that. It does have some... Hold on, let me put it this way. Let me try to rephrase some things here. I apologize. My notes are a little bit funky here. Okay, I'm gonna try and reword that. I do apologize, but so let me start off with this segment here. Is I'm new to the Gundam franchise. Should I watch Mobile Suit Gundam Iron-Blooded Orphans first? Yes, I'm actually gonna recommend watching this one first if this is your first foray into the Gundam franchise, amongst many others. This is a standalone series and is very self-contained. You do not need to watch any previous Gundam series or watch any other Gundam series to understand this series itself. It's very accessible on a lot of streaming services, alongside with accessibility on physical copies such as Blu-rays, like I have mine right here. I have it, again, in parts when I originally got it through the special editions, which I believe they have it now released as a full series instead of broken up parts. And it does keep to a lot of the Gundam core elements and core values. The only thing that's different is that they kind of spin it in a different way or apply it in a different way towards the main themes of this entire series. And it sets a pretty good standard, like what to expect when going to other Gundam series. I think the only thing that's gonna be different is that this is again a post-war kind of a story, not during a war. And it's a very, very dark series in comparison to majority of other series that you can jump into in the Gundam franchise. Again, this is in competition directly with Zeta Gundam and Victory Gundam for the most darkest Gundam series ever. But still, it is a great series to jump into and a fantastic springboard into the Gundam franchise. And as for a overall, Mobile Suit Gundam Iron-Blooded Orphans. Alright, actually, let me try that again. I apologize. Let me just rehash this and also clear my throat because I feel a cough coming up. Getting a little bit dry-throated again. Let me read this real quick. I'm trying to also stray away from me, kind of like phrasing it like kind of like this, you know, like a critique kind of thing. I'm still trying to stay true to like me just telling you as it is, but at the same time, really being straightforward with that overall. So let me just kind of read it as it is here. So, as for an overall of the series, Iron-Blooded Orphans is one of, if not the darkest Gundam series in the entire franchise. It, again, directly challenges Zeta Gundam and Victory Gundam with its harsh atmosphere and story of child soldiers, mercenaries, and corrupt government organizations. Just like the series' atmosphere and tone, the action of this series is absolutely savage and brutal. All well told and beautifully paced with a fantastic story and characters. If you can handle the grim post-disaster world of Iron-Blooded Orphans, this is a Gundam series that I highly recommend you to watch, especially if this is your first Gundam series. Mobile Suit Gundam Iron-Blooded Orphans gets that awesomely savage and brutal 5 out of 5. I cannot highly recommend this series any more than I already talked about. This is an absolutely fantastic series to watch. Hits a lot of good points in the Gundam franchise, and it's an easily accessible, super standalone series that you don't have to worry about, what do I need to watch in the Gundam franchise so I can understand the history or anything like that? No, you can just jump right into this series and feel absolutely comfortable. That being said, that's pretty much all I want to say when it comes to Iron-Blooded Orphans. But let me just kind of ask you this, guys. If you're watching this on my Twitch channel, make sure to follow me on Twitch. If you are watching this on YouTube, like this video, subscribe to my channel, leave a comment down below. I want to hear from you guys. What did you think about this series? Did you like what I had to say about it? Do you agree with some of the points I make, or did you disagree with me? I want to hear from you guys. Leave a comment down below. With that said, too, I do want to thank you for watching this episode of Nerdy Reviews. And until the next episode, I will see you guys next time. Take care. Alright, and that's not absolutely the end of this here. I just want to talk to you guys real quick here. Give me 1 second here, I think. No. I'll check. I just saw my cat Nero walk by, and I'm like, I hope he's just doing fine and he didn't puke somewhere or whatnot. He just looked a little skittish. That's why when I caught him, like, not seeing his little trash spot too. So he went somewhere else. Hope he's. I'll check him in just a little bit. But there's a couple of things I want to talk about. So yes, of course, I finished up Iron-Blooded Orphans. It's funny, like it's like I know some people are gonna go like, well, Briston, why can't you remember some of the character names or what? I'm like, to be honest, I finished this up back. I want to say I finished it on Tuesday, if I remember correctly, because I watched the final episode on Wednesday, and then I just started. Well, not just started. I finished up at least one of many of the Build Fighter series I'm going to be reviewing next. So, yes, we are coming to the end of the line here with the Gundam franchise. I have actually just finished up just last night Build Fighters, and I did watch some of the episodes here, or some of the little ONAs for Build Fighters, and I I'm about to start on Try now. And once I finish up Try, I can watch the Island Special alongside with the Battle Log episodes it has. And then I could start up on Divers. So, I know in the last couple of weeks I've been missing out on stuff. Last week when I took my break, I actually didn't watch any more Gundam at that point. I kind of paused myself, and then I continued the following week. I just want to take a vacay. To be fair, and I don't know if you guys saw my tweet about this, but I've been watching Gundam, straight up Gundam, since May. I have quite literally done the wake up, do some my morning stuff, or chores or activities I need to do. Watch Gundam, go to work, get off work, watch more Gundam, go to sleep, rinse and repeat all of that. I've literally done this since May. So my life has been pretty much a twilight zone of just what's the next Gundam series I am watching, what's the next review I am doing, that sort of thing. So I'm just I'm not burned out, I'm just tired. I'm like a juggernaut, I just keep pushing through stuff. But it's kind of funny because when I acknowledge when I'm at the end, that's when I get even more tired and I wind down. So it's kind of funny. I have only, let me see. So, we have 4 build series to watch, and then I have Gundam Evolutions, which I'm also going to cover. Estimated at this point here, next week I will be covering at least these 3 right here. I'm going to cover Fighters and Try next week, alongside with the special edition stuff, such as GM Counterattack, the Gundam Fighters Battle Log, and the Try Island Wars. Try Island Wars, is that called right? Yeah, Try Island Wars. I think I'm going to be just doing a double feature of that because these are short. I was able to finish this in 2 days. 2 days. That's actually pretty impressive, if you ask me. So other than that too, I will have Divers next, Divers next, and then Divers Re-Rise, which I'm sad that we don't have a physical copy of this yet. This is something I will be grabbing when it hits physical. I'm just waiting when Right Stuff releases it. But I will be watching Re-Rise on Gundam Info, so that's where you guys can find it too. I'm going to watch it through there. Dubbed if I can, subbed if I have to. But after I finish that up, we're going to go on to Gundam Evolve, and that is pretty much it. So if I'm not mistaking that incorrectly here, that could potentially take me 3 weeks if I break them up in that way, like Gundam Fighters and Try, Divers and Divers Re-Rise, and then Gundam Evolve. Or I can merge Gundam Evolve into the that week, and we'll do a trifecta and really wrap things up. But I have to say I'm really, really happy about my progression so far, because like it's been an experience watching all these Gundam series. You see Century in chronological order of the universe itself, and then watching every other Gundam series in release of chronological order. Yes, I know this one actually came out before Iron-Blooded Orphans, but the only reason I am watching that one last is because it's different than any other Gundam series. I mean, it's kind of what every Gundam series as of after Seed since Seed kept on changing it up, which I really, really liked. But the Build Fighter series overall, this series overall is very different than any other Gundams, and I'll be talking about that more next week. But it's very different, very nice. Kind of inspiring me to do other things too, building models. But that might leave you guys with a little of what are you gonna do next, Briston? And I'm like, that's a good question. Actually, I have quite a bit of a few ideas here, and it might change the perspective of this channel too, which is gonna be interesting. Because originally I was going to, and I'll tell you my battle plans right now, so you guys have a little bit of an idea. My original plans for once I'm done with watching all these Gundam series was I was just gonna keep going on and just do other live stream reviews. But after all that I've talked about and all the notes that I have and all the things I can cover, I have a lot I can go over actually. Sorry, I just gotta double check some things here. My god. I apologize for that. It's just my digis are crying I'm just gonna let them starve. Long story short, I'm trying to get a certain evolution, and it requires that. But what I'm planning on going forward from here is because I have so much notes and so much information I've written about Gundam, and like, if you're watching my live stream reviews, you know that I have a lot to say, and I mean these are long episodes. But I want to refine them. I want to change it up a little bit and produce some more refined reviews, because I feel like as I was going through my reviews, and as you can see, I keep on changing things up, mix and matching things, organizing things in different ways, just trying to find something I felt comfortable with. And while I am, getting the viewership and subscriptions, which are awesome, I feel like I want to try to make something a little bit more mainstream. So I'm going to be recreating a lot of my reviews to be more based, like, shorter, super short, 10 or 20 minutes. I'm not too sure. I'm still trying to decide on a right time for you guys. But make it a little more straightforward and make it more of an approachable for people who've never watched the series. And then those who've watched the series, you guys can literally rewatch these live stream reviews, because honestly, it's going to capture not all my opinions, but majority of my opinions on there. These last few episodes I've done so far have been a little bit more capitalizing on a lot of what I thought, or breaking down of elements and stuff like that. And that got me thinking more into doing some Gundam theory. So I'm potentially going to be going into, right after I finish up with Gundam Evolve, it's going to take me some time, because this is going to be more of a production quality, basically. I'm going to be more working towards creating Gundam theory episodes, redoing my reviews into shorter frames, providing you guys that content, so you guys want to share it or have a much more straightforward one. And then I'm going to have a lot of these Gundam theory things. I really want to revisit a lot of these series, break down some of these core elements or the themes, diving more into our characters, that sort of thing. So I think there's a lot for me to go into when it comes to the Gundam franchise, and I'm not ready to just leave it just yet. Other than that, I know that there's a couple of other things that are coming up, because I'm not abandoning my live streams or anything like that. I might stop doing live stream reviews for the most part, but I'm still going to do some live streams. I think I might just do like an unfiltered, not like cuss worthy, but an unrestrained analysis on the theories I might release that week. I got a bunch of games that are coming up. My brother actually surprisingly got back into Final Fantasy 14 4 months ago. I wish he had told me, but then again, if he did that, I wouldn't be at the place I am right now in my Gundam reviews. So I really want to finish up here, because I might want to play some Final Fantasy 14. I was originally also planning to stream all the Final Fantasy games, because I've been hankering for a good RPG. But that might come to another screeching halt, because next month, Super Robot Wars 30 is coming out next month, so I might be live streaming that, as well as posting up some of my videos of that on my YouTube. We also got the Pokemon games that are coming up in November, and then in January as well. And I'm anticipating getting the Digimon Vital Bracelet, which I would like to do some live streams and reviews on that too. So, like, go right back to some of my reviewing routes or tendencies. So I got a lot of content that I'm planning on doing. I am not slowing down by any means, but anticipate that once I do finish up with the reviews of the Gundam franchise itself, it's gonna slow down a little bit, but it's not gonna slow down stream wise. If anything else, I'm gonna still be streaming stuff, just not live stream reviews as much. And YouTube content wise might be slowed down until I start releasing these newer videos I want to do. Additionally, with that too, more or less, I mentioned about podcasting. I still am going to be doing my podcast too. I decided against transforming a lot of the videos into podcasts, because I didn't feel like they were good enough to listen to, because a lot of it had broken up segments and doing a lot of things I don't do as of current. Like, I put now my favorite suits in the spoiler section here after getting some comments from my family and friends. So that's why I asked you guys if you could leave me a comment down below. Let me know what you guys think. That's not, yes, I want to impact my YouTube algorithms, but at the same time too, I'm still growing and changing and developing as a YouTube content maker. So I would like to hear from you guys what you really genuinely think. Not so much as just only impacting my algorithms, but I really want to hear feedback. And the only feedback I'm getting is, primarily from my wife and a few of my family and friends who I, hey, poke you, I just made a video, you mind watching this for me and telling me what you think? Yeah, that sort of thing. But everyone's, and I say this too, I'm the kind of person, like, I can take critique. And if you can give me, and I really look for constructive criticism, and if you can give me genuine constructive criticism, and it has no impact or it doesn't hurt me. If you're just gonna tell me that this sucks, and okay, that's nice, I know my videos suck. Could you tell me a little bit more, like what I can do? Your video sucks. Thank you for acknowledging that. I acknowledge your statement, and that doesn't do anything to help me improve. How can I prove this video sucks? So I'm really looking for, hey, dude, so the video is a little bit rough here, and here's what I think. Like, perfect. What do you think is rough about it? And what can I do to improve it? So, in all honesty, yeah, if you guys got stuff that you can tell me what I can do to improve, or make it a little bit more of a streamlined process / watching, viewing, and all that, please let me know, because I do edit these, and I watch them, and to me, I'm like, I enjoy it. And there's a rule of thumb when it comes to content creating, not just in YouTube, but just in general, right? If it's content that, or material that you can watch and enjoy, someone else is going to enjoy it. So I find it enjoyable, but I want to make sure I hit, a lot of people so everyone else can watch this stuff too, and everyone gets an enjoyment out of it. So really do leave me comments behind. Let me know how I'm doing, or if you got suggestions. I got people who were earlier on in the game, so I don't want any spoilers, so I try to avoid spoilers, and then we're saying like, oh, this is spoilers. You weren't thinking about this. I'm like, I didn't think about that. I didn't think of it as spoilers. They just talking about some cool stuff. And I'm like, yeah, that's spoilers. Anyway, so that's what I kind of did. I changed up things, but that's why I'm going to be redoing my reviews to be a little more streamlined for people who've never watched the series before, to be a genuine review. And then if you guys want more of my open reviews, I have these. But yeah, anticipate more to come. Redux, so completion of the Gundam franchise, reduxes of all of my reviews I've done so far to a shorter bite-sized format. Anticipate more live streams, more involvement with games, and then definitely what I'm going to be working on more directly and hardly is the create, not just the reduxes of my reviews, but working on a lot of Gundam theory stuff. And I'm probably going to start from the very beginning again. So that's something I'm really, really excited to do. Really, really what I'm really looking forward to do here. Keep an eye out. I'm going to be trying to also do the podcast stuff. I got things set up here. I just haven't released anything. Again, I didn't feel like anything was really podcast worthy. So that's where I'm currently at right now. Other than that, I don't really have anything else. I'm just looking around. Yeah. That's all I have to say here. I might actually turn this into like a channel update thing. I'm not too sure. But I just want to leave you guys with that one. I do want to thank you all for watching this live on Twitch. And if you are watching this on YouTube as well, I do want to thank you for watching this. Until the next live stream, whether or not be a review or not, but until the next one, I will see you guys next time. And I am truly ending it off. So take care.